Welcome, parish orphans out there from the Rules for Retrograde squad. Dave and Tim here. We come to you tonight with a live special announcement. The announcement being the release date of our book will be March 20th. The book, Rules for Retrogrades, you're already familiar with the title because it's the title of this manly show. It went on pre-order today, and this isn't just some crummy commercial. We're going to tell you more about this book.
A lousy commercial?
We're going to tell you more about the authorship of this book, the mission of the book, and some of the specifics, how you can get your hands on the first 10 rules early. Right now, it's an outright war. We often use the analogy that, how many times have you gone, Dave, to a Catholic reclaiming authentic masculinity conference or something like that, and they're still speaking in the anodyne platitudes that got us here in the first place? The same low-T, nonsensical, non-specific, nicey crap that got us here in the first place.
You're giving me flashbacks to a Catholic Engaged Encounter Weekend or whatever, right, where the low-T, henpecked male came out with his domineering wife and told me how to run my future marriage. Like, no thanks, bro.
No, that they're, for whatever reason, they're all that way because people don't want to step onto the precipice and give specifics, right? I mean, no one wants to do it. Bishop Barron doesn't want to give specifics as to who falls under the shadow of his critique. No one wants to give specifics on our side of things either in terms of how do we fight the culture war. Our book, Rules for Retrogrades, as some of you, some lucky few, who get to read the first 10 rules, will see this book is specific enough to be dangerous and dangerous enough to bother to be specific. And we're going to talk about the reason we put it that way is so that we wouldn't just be like an engaged encounter reclaiming tepid low-T Catholic masculinity conference. We're going to give you, kind of like our feminism book, which will come out later in the year, we're going to give you specifics, specific expedients, specific approaches, specific attacks, very specific things like the rules for radicals. And then there's some theory, some philosophy, some principle in this book, but that's mostly justification for the 40 rules, most of which are rather specific attacks on the culture war. It's time to retake this thing. Dave, we went live before. You said something great, and it's just S-canned now. Right. About we need to get this book in the hands of those who matter. People, please support us. If you can't support us on Patreon, we understand. Go pre-order this book now. You get a real gem. It's a humdinger.
Yeah, we had before we had the blooper reel where we didn't go live when we thought we were, and I was like in rare form and like eloquently describing this book with all the articulation of Winston Churchill.
So rare.
Right, of course. And then now I'm going to be like, buy the book. But no, we wouldn't waste your time. We're not in this just to turn a profit. We're in here because we're trying to reclaim the culture and our heart's truly in it. If I wanted to just be a guy who made the most money or turned a profit, I would just stick to practicing law.
You could be in professional sports, if you like Michael Scott says. Right? I would have turned to a career of professional sports.
I would have gone to the NBA if I wanted to make the big bucks, okay?
Or NHL or NFL.
No, our hearts are in this. We aren't saying anything that we don't mean. If I ever say something, I'm not just blowing smoke. This is a great book. We bounced it off one of my professors at Steubenville, and he even was like, yeah, this is pleasure reading for me. So I think we've done you all proud. And what the essence of the book is how to wrench back the culture from the progressives, the radicals that have taken it from us. Conservatives, Christians have gotten used to losing. They've gotten used to getting their butts kicked. And I want everyone to stick their head out the window and say, shout, I'm not going to take it anymore. We are sick of it. This Rules for Retrogrades is the way to take back the culture from the sneaky, insidious progressives who have taken it from us bit by bit and point by point over the last 50 years. We're going to get our culture back, which starts with you good people. We need to get the word out among a solid base of people who can start reordering their lives and start reshaping the conventional wisdom, a conventional wisdom that's failed us, that has landed us on our backsides with progressives at the helm of the ship. The conventional wisdom, we're going to reshape it. We're going to formulate it so now it's a winning formula for the good guys, the winning formula for Christians and conservatives. And
when you're doing this, I'm thinking of Chris Farley. Sorry, we're going to twist your head off, son.
Yeah, young man, I'm going to twist off your your head.
Listen, people can get this book, or at least the first quarter of it, the first 10 rules out of 40 early, by contacting us. If you're willing to do it, we're going to do this for the first 200 or 300 Rules for Retrogrades fans. We haven't talked about it yet. I mean, call it a launch squad if you want, but we're not really doing the traditional launch squad.
Launch squad sounds like a G.I. Joe squadron. Like the launch squad, where they shoot cool. Missiles off.
But the point is, I mean, I think it sounds, I think the problem's not in the name. The problem is in, we're not, this is not a quid pro quo. If we'd love to get this book in the hands of people. Today it went on pre-order and a bunch of people went and already are putting this in the top category, like Philosophy of Good and Evil, something like that. It's number 1 on Amazon right now as I speak to you. More people that want to get their hands on an early first 10 rules, I think those are some of the very best ones. You can do so. Contact us. All we would ask, and we're not being too specific here, so understand what I'm saying, please spread the word any way your good imagination, your moral imagination directs you. That you know the traditional channels. Just say, hey, if you find this book effective insofar as the dictates of its first 10 rules, let people know in word, written, and oral that this is good. If people are asking you, what's the Rules for Retrogrades all about? We write the show and we will take a number down. We hope to have a few people in every state represented, so we can send you a PDF of the first 10 rules of this book. It's like a launch squad, G.I. Joe or not. We just want people to see what they can expect in mid-March when the book comes out. Now, again, this is an attack plan, a bona fide plan of attack to retake things. I'm kind of surprised we're the first ones that did it. We're standing Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals on their head, and not just by going through and inverting his rules. You will find very specific directives in this puppy for making a mess, right? Pope Francis wants us to make a mess. Things like, are you sick of hearing about, homosexual couples that go into Christian bakeries and make them bake cakes that say homosexualist platitudes? Are you? We'll give you specifics. Things like, you can reverse this very specifically. You can go into a bakery that is non-Christian friendly, maybe a homosexualist bakery, and you can say, hey, I'd like you to bake me a cake that says marriage between a man and a woman is the only real one. Something like this.
It's part of always being on offense. It's one of our rules. It's in there. And these are the types of things that would have made the old guard, their heads would just explode. They don't think outside the box. The people that scold us that scold young, rash, people of the rising generation.
On fire.
Yeah, people who are on fire, who are going out there and doing anything to not maintain the losing status quo for the church and for conservatism. They're getting scolded by the old guard. Yeah. These are the types of things, the directives in the book are the types of things that would make the old guard's heads explode, because there are going to be effective and morally sound ways of reaching our goal, of reaching so that we're the ones at the helm of the ship, so that the good guys win in the culture. We don't have to resign ourselves as Christians and conservatives to getting slaughtered until Judgment Day. Now, ultimately, we know victory is God's. We know the end of the story, right? We know the eschatology. Christ is going to come back. And even at the point where things are drastically bad in that final apostasy during the reign of the Antichrist, right? And he's going to come back and free us from all that. But we don't have to get our butts kicked leading up until the end times. We can make, as Catholics, as Christians, we are called to make the world as just as we possibly can. And we can do everything in our power to achieve that end. And that's what this book is about.
Button on that jacket
yeah, loud. We're going to take it, but we're going to take the power back. It's empowerment for Christians and conservatives, and it's a how-to manual. It's an art of war manual for how to get the culture back.
To borrow the description your Franciscan university mentor used in his glowing appraisal of the book. Thank you very much, Dr. Blank, for now. We appreciate that. It's an art of war for the Christian right. And again, here's what I wanted to come on screen and emphasize with you guys today. This is not an empty promise, right? It's not the culmination of a couple months worth of writing, even though that's what we took to write it. You know, some sleepless nights for Dave toward the end of the deadline. This was the culmination of half a decade of scheming on our parts. A book we talked about a long time before we sat down and wrote it and collated it and collaborated together to some extent, but mainly collected our own thoughts and gathered them on the page. Lots of expedients, meaning specific counterattack. We're taking the initiative from the opponent, Saul Alinsky, who's, to borrow the words from The Ford by Michael Knowles, looking up from the afterlife, thinking, wow, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we were running this thing. How did we lose control? The radicals thought in the 60s and even 50s that they were going to have the initiative, the military offense, forever. And I can guarantee Saul Alinsky, right, that the initiative is now taken. If we can only popularize this, not just to a book, but to a movement, think of it like the movie Fight Club. If it can be a movement that is incorporated into secular conservatism as well as Christian conservatism, Protestant and Catholic, then we can actually effectuate a realistic goal of putting the enemy on its heels. We're not a bunch of Ned Flanderses. And we're not required to be. And when you read one rule from this book, nothing violates the Decalogue, obviously. But the rest of it is, wow, these guys are going on offense, and these are specific directives with the philosophy and the theology to back it up.
If you're a wimpy Christian, this is not for you. This is not the Ned Flanders how-to guide to, evangelize your neighborhood. This is a muscular book about how to get the culture back, and we need it back, and we need this book in the hands of our leaders and in the hands of just the rank and file, church-going faithful, because we need, the method to spread like wildfire. We have been, it's like the rules of engagement in war. If you have bad rules of engagement, you're going to get your butts kicked. Right. And we have been laboring under an unduly burdensome and incompetent set of rules of engagement that were handed down to us by imperious, lukewarm, barely believers. And we're not going to take it anymore. The ones who have weathered the storm of the mass apostasy of the post-conciliar age, we are on fire for Christ. We're not content to get our butts kicked. We are out to get them. As Art says in the Burbs so eloquently.
Look, so you can get this, you can pre-order it on Amazon.com. You can pre-order it on Tan Books website, our goodly publisher. We're forever appreciative that they took a step out and published this book, because this is, again, your Christian's Sun Tzu, Art of War. It's out there. And this book could not have been published 10 years ago. Nor could our No Christian Feminism coming out later in the year on Sophia, when things were a little more copacetic. These books required a heightened state of the crisis in order to raise the public consciousness to the level of exigency where they're like, we need a book like this. Yeah. We need an attack plan like this. Unprecedented, as far as I can tell. This is not bluster. But so you can go to Tan online and pre-order the book. That's actually better, because then you're cutting out the radicals over at Amazon.com, or a necessary middleman, often Amazon.com itself. The first 10 rules of the book, this is a quarter of the book. Each rule has an explication of 3 to 5 pages, 2 to 5 pages. depending on the means of specificity of the rule. The first 10 will be available. We're making it to a kind of a launch team. There's no real strings attached. We just ask, hey, let people know, help to spread the word. This is a good, great counterattack on the insurgents in Christendom. So that's what we're asking. And you use your imagination as to the best means of effectuating that communication. That's all we ask, and we're going to open it to, we haven't decided whether it's the first 200 or 300, but it's important to have some people out there telling on the internet, their friends, at least, I read these first 10 rules and here's what I thought. Just give an honest appraisal. That's all we ask. We don't, it doesn't have to be good. It doesn't, we're confident it will be. That's all we ask. And it's really important to getting this book in, because of the algorithms they use. It's important that this book hits the ground running. That's all we're saying. We need it to get in the hands of the right people. I've been contacted actually by some people high up, close to Trump, and I'm trying to get them this book. Michael Knowles is helping out with it. We have all our usual channels on it, but we really want for the mid-March release. We want a lot of sales, and we want a buzz around this book because, frankly, I'm just going to tell you straight up, it deserves one. It's unprecedented.
Yeah, we need it, like I've said, in the hands of leaders, and we need new people. We need it in the hands of the rank and file because it's you who are going to be the future of Christianity and conservatism. And as you ascend into leadership positions, we need to have formed the culture, we need to have formed the rules, and we need to have formed the rank and file so that when they reach leadership, they don't fall into the same traps of pusillanimity that our current leaders have fallen into. They're basically empty suits for the most part. I think everybody knows that. We've reached a tipping point in the culture, in Western culture. Tim said we couldn't have done this maybe 10 to 15 years ago. We have reached a tipping point because we see the aggressiveness and the sheer audacity of the left in pushing their agenda and the absolute complicitness and weakness and fecklessness and toothlessness of our leaders on the right in fighting back. And we don't want to take it anymore. It's time to whoop some radical ass, and this is the way to do it. So please, Tim was kind of giving, buy the book, tell your friends, and then
we're not being codified about that. Literally, I understand because I've been there much of my career myself. A lot of friends and well-wishers and fellow retrogrades out there, we salute you, simply can't afford to do a monthly Patreon thing, and that's why we barely mention it anyway. We just stick it at the end. That is how we keep the lights on for the podcast and the whole enterprise. We understand 100%. But if anything, if you're planning on buying a new either conservative or Christian book in early 2020, please make it this book, Rules for Retrogrades by Tan Books. You're supporting arguably, one of the two best Catholic publishers out there, we'll say. Them and Sophia Institute, our loyalties are divided. And you're supporting guys doing something truly novel. Win, lose, or draw, it's something truly novel. It's been vetted by some serious names on the right. It's been vetted by real theologians at our best guys at Franciscan University. So we're not just blowing smoke. This is an art of war for Catholic conservatives. When we put, and like I said, me and Dave were up late at nights. People were commenting on I looking tired, for some of our first podcasts. That wasn't because of the new baby, which my wife and I had at the end of the summer. That was because we were pushing out the two other babies, these two books, Rules for Retrogrades and No Christian Feminism. We were burning the midnight oil. I have a day job, and we had deadlines to make. And man, people. One thing I heard Tom Woods say when he had a little feud with another traditionalist Catholic, I won't mention names, is he said, "Look, don't organize boycotts. If anything, go buy this guy's book, and even if you disagree, write a review, because these are good people." And what Tom Woods said that I really connected with is, man, writing a book, you put your, as it were, blood, sweat, and tears into the thing. It's years of your life, or months of your life at the very least. And it's really mean when people boycott a book, even a book of their ostensible rival within Catholicism, because it's so much work, right?
Right,
Dave.
Well, there's something else to be said. Here's another facet of this is when you write a book like this that's countercultural, where you're putting your heart into it and telling hard truths that some people are going to automatically turn their backs on you for, you need the support of like-minded people because you are out on a limb. I lost my job partially because of the feminism stuff that we were speaking. And so we have put ourselves out on a limb to preach the gospel, to evangelize the culture, right? And I trust God. I do. I trust God with all my heart. All you have to do out there is do God's will and trust Him, and He will take care of you. I'm a father of 5, so it means something to me to have faith in God that He's going to take care of me. I'm not just saying it. Right. I mean my words. I wouldn't be up here saying what I said, what I do say regularly, if I didn't mean it. With these books, with Rules for Retrogrades and the upcoming feminism book, we are out on a limb. We need the support of good Catholics because it's going to be hard. Like Milo said, now obviously he made his own mistakes and said something quite foolish that he shouldn't have said. But he couldn't get a job at Foot Locker. It's difficult in the Catholic world. Some people are going to like us a lot, but a lot of people, we've just branded ourselves with a scarlet letter for the rest of our lives, right? And so we definitely...
The letter R, retrograde.
Right, exactly. So we need the support of people out there who are like-minded Catholics, right? So we can continue doing what we're doing.
You want people with skin in the game, right? You want to support someone that's got skin in the game. This comes up every presidential primary. We want someone that's really invested in it. Again, we're not hitting you up for forget our Patreon accounts. If you can afford to do it, great. But most people, if you can't, you can't. But this is a good book. You get something. It is I think a life-changing book because you'll see how many tactics you can take in your homes, your parishes, your schools, and your neighborhoods to make a real mess of things, as Pope Francis said. And I do appreciate what point you're making here, Dave. We have skin in the game big time. I mean,
it's one of the rules, isn't it?
Yeah.
Circle the wagons.
You got to circle the wagons, and it's one thing to be hit up by charity. Hey, support my ministry. That's irritating. That's panhandling. That's why we're so decisively against it to the extent that we can afford to be. But when it's a book, and it's a real good book, we got Michael Knowles forwarding it. He was talking on Twitter today about how proud he is just to have and honored to be forwarding it. We feel the exact same way about having him.
Well, we're helping him get famous.
Right. Now he's going to be big because of this. He has a chance anyway. If the book goes big enough, Michael Knowles could get famous. But the point is, you're looking at two guys in differing ways. I work in a diocese. That's been very good to me. Dave, kind of the opposite end of the coin. He was a little startup kind of trad school, and you get nipped. You get what they say, talk-ish, get hit, right? It's a better rhyme the way it really goes. And when we're out there talking a sort of holy-ish, we're not really covering up that much. That's the point. There's cover and there's concealment. Sometimes we're kind of behind concealment, but cover is what actually shields you from the bullet, and we're kind of just out there. I think people can connect with this, and this is still not like a stump speech, and it's still not panhandling. Just it's an amazing book. I'm genuinely proud of it. For a list book, it's not just light reading, even though it's an easy book to get through in terms of length. Very, very easy. This is real substance, years in the making, and we collaborated on this.
Well, it's two guys I'm a political science major, and I worked in government. So I worked for the executive branch of government and the judicial branch of government. I was accepted into a political science PhD program. We're not just... Tim's an attorney, and he's been studying political philosophy for the better part of his life now. So it's two guys with credentials who actually know how to do certain things, how to get things changed in a culture.
Just the kind of cultural attack. I talked to a great dude earlier today, a Catholic podcast interview. I'll probably air that on our channel some week when we're busy with promotions or something. my new buddy John, we were talking about the cultural attack and the fact that being not chosen for the hour, it sounds so grandiloquent, but the reason that right now, 2020, 2018, 2019, seems to be putting forward guys with a bolder message than 2010 or year 2000. Younger, bolder dudes that maybe, understand the culture. They were in the world. Maybe they were in it and of it at some point. But they were at least in the world. I was in a touring rock band for throughout college. That we were, couple of skateboarders from Southern California.
I was a moron when I was younger. Just speaking for myself until my reversion. Yeah, not a good dude at all. I've countenanced that on the show before.
Right, a couple of converted reverts or whatever you want to call us. The reason this is the kind of day for forget if you think it's me and Dave, people like us, people out there, guys like Jesse Romero or whatever. It's a different day because we can speak to the countercultural attack from being in it, right? In a way, whether you like him or you lump him or he's got a job now, it's hard to get a gig. Someone like Milo Yiannopoulos seems to understand the attack better than pick your, parish Karen or Susan. It's that day, their day has come. Their day has come. We need generals.
But the problem is, their day has come, but they've spread enough of their failed methods, of their failed conventions, of their failed ideology, of their acquiescence to losing, that it needs to be driven from the culture. And that's the point of the book. We are driving the failed mentality, like the the last 50 years, conservatism and Christianity has had a procedure akin to the playbook of the Cleveland Browns. And yet, these people, rather than acknowledging their own failure to hold the culture for us, they've pushed their playbook on us. It's like the Cleveland Browns pushing their playbook on other NFL teams and having the audacity to get scoldy and upset when other people are like, no thanks, we've seen what you can do and we're not too pleased, we're not that impressed. You keep your own playbook and sort it out yourself. We need to drive the failed playbook into the ground. We need to bury it, put it in the ash bin of history where it belongs, and that's what we do with this book.
Right. You guys are familiar with this. I was talking about it with a major Twitter trad friend earlier today. He'll probably be on the show next week or the week after that. We're talking about this exact same phenomenon with respect to the liturgy, right? The failures of the missal, right? The new missal. They're still chidey. They're still scolding us. Like, look, this was by all statistical measures knowable, a complete failure. Let's go back to the pre-failure days. That's what we're saying with regard to the culture of the world, the popular culture, and the way that it's affected the Catholic culture. Let's try something new that works. Being aggressive, being direct, and being clear is what works. That's what the book's saying. And being specific. That's right. The other thing. This is not your reclaiming Catholic masculinity seminar that just
by the pudgy, slump-shouldered guy with whose neckline recedes into his chest. No, that's not what this is. This is broad-shouldered, muscular Catholicism, and it's for a select group of people who can handle it. We're not watering it down just so we can appeal to the dissenting pew sitters out there. This is for the people who take their faith seriously and who are sick of losing.
Right. We hope to make it a kind of mainstream Catholic winsome approach to conservatism in general. Real conservatism, political conservatism, is Catholic in its nature. There are great scriptural truths that do appeal to the Protestants, but we're hoping to kind of everything that's intellectual and good at the same time in conservatism is Catholic. And so we're really hoping these appeals work. Either way, this isn't just a sales pitch. We do have a plan. The plan will be unfolded. The book is part of the plan. The podcast is part of the plan. We haven't spoken to the kind of approach that much because we've just been trying to get out some quality content, quality guests, quality one-on-one talks to let you know the ways where we are distinct from the other important great voices on the Catholic right out there. We have our own voice. We have a linked up, corroborating, yet distinct mission statement. Anyway, you can pick. So this is going to be a short one. Please, people, if you have an extra, 20 spot or whatever, go on Tan Books or Amazon and pre-order now so you don't forget. I forget to order good books. I have 5 I need to go order now. We're going to keep this show short. Please do that. We will be doing individual shows after the release of the book on individual rules and applications as it's relevant in the church and the world, current events and whatnot. And do contact the show if you are one of those desperately awaiting the Rules for Retrogrades to come out and you just feel like you can't make it to March 20th. We can get you the first 10 rules as long as you're sufficiently excited. Let's say that. And we'll, all we'd ask is just, if you think it's good, tell your friends by word. And we really do appreciate the opportunity to be in front of everyone here. We appreciate the opportunity to work with both Tan and Sophia. And you will not be disappointed with the way that this book adds contour to this very podcast.
Yeah. We should wrap it. I just want to plug, I'm going to be doing, by popular demand, I'm going to be doing a show, actually not popular demand that, we do solo show, but I'm going to be doing a solo show on something that I've gotten a lot of questions about. How do I get my adult kids to pick up and practice the faith again? They've fallen away either into secularism or Protestantism or into an alternative and sinful lifestyle. How do we get them to come back to the faith? I've got some from, time in parish ministry. I've got some pretty good ideas about how to do that, and they're kind of the opposite of what everybody seems to be thinking you do. So look for that. That'll be coming Friday.
Yeah, it should drop Friday. Also, for my patrons out there, last thought, totally different direction, but I am releasing these 2 complete courses in increments, one on church history. I'm telling you, it's really good stuff. I've used it for years with my personal slideshows. And then for higher level patrons, course on all 10 books of the Nicomachean Ethics. It will help you learn church history in the course of about 6 hours. Learn Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, the most important ancient ethical treatise, in about 5 or 6 hours. Those are for my patrons. Those will be going up. I've been, if I'm looking tired, it's because that's what I've been working on lately, is recording those with Steph. And this onward and upward, man. This is the trajectory of Rules for Retrogrades. We're doing lots of stuff. We have lots of continued guests in January and February, and then the book hits in March, and later in the year, No Christian Feminism hopefully will come out. So we're really excited to have the 2 manuscripts in. Lots of late nights, lots of collaboration, blood, sweat, and tears. Proverbially poured into these books. Thank you everyone for being with us tonight. Sorry for the short